Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom with our host, Bob Olson, who will now introduce today's show and speaker.
WCAT Radio presents Just Plain Theology from Rome, Sweet Rome, featuring Natalia Eugen with some guests today. And Natalia is on location in Rome, and she's going to tell us all about it. It's good to have you back, Natalia, from Rome today.
Yes, it's good to be back. How are you?
Good.
So I have two guests with me, some fellow students from the Angelicum. I have Brother Joseph Maria Buckley and Brother Kazimir Zielinski. Did I say that right, Brother Kazimir? Right. There we go. They belong to the Order of St. Paul the First Hermit, and they're both from Australia, and they're both good friends, and so we're going to hear all about them and their vocations and their journey here to Rome and how they found everything, and we're just going to chat.
Good. I'm excited.
Good. So we'll start with Brother Joseph Maria. So Brother Joseph, now I'm starting with you because you're the oldest in religious life here.
Yes, and I'm older than him too. That's true.
So how old are you guys?
I'm 27.
And you are?
I'll be 25 in 3 weeks.
Okay. And but you've known each other for eons, right?
Yeah,
donkey's years.
Donkey's years.
Early teens.
Early teens.
That's what they say in Australia.
Donkey's
years.
For donkey's years, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You're going to have to give us all these Australianisms, these Aussieisms.
Yeah.
So you guys met at school.
No.
No, how did you meet?
He never actually went to school.
No, I'm sorry, I went to a school. I did 2 years at a public school and then I was homeschooled.
Okay. So
I went to a college. No, we met at a very liturgical kind of event. Every year in Brisbane, there was a lady that used to organise a big Corpus Christi procession.
Mm-hmm. We met at the Polish church in the sacristy.
That might have been, I don't remember that.
That was before that.
What I remember is the Corpus Christi procession. You being MC, me being an acolyte. That's where I remember first meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
We met at Gordon's.
That's probably true as well.
Where your brother believes that the hours were not standard for that place.
Ah, yes. Well,
this is the brother that was also a friend?
Yeah.
Yes. My older brother, who's now also a seminarian with the Oratorians.
Ah, that's right. Now, you were mentioning that. It's interesting because he's with an order that is characterized by stability.
Yes.
And you're with an order that can move you anywhere.
Well, no, let's be precise here. They are a society of apostolic life.
Very good. You've been studying each other.
I do open the code occasionally. Now, I think I'd like to highlight this. We're a real religious order. We take vows.
Don't judge. Okay, so.
The source that I looked up lists us amongst the 8 monastic orders in the Catholic Church.
Yes. Now, it's interesting because in the States, you don't have a huge presence. Now, I ran into some of your confreres, I think, a couple of years ago, when I happened to go to a conference at the shrine in the U.S. of the Yasna Order that got the leadership. Yes. And exactly. And so, but you guys, your order wasn't so much on the radar screen, so I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, we just kind of run the place.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But, I mean, you're known in Poland, in Eastern Europe, Central Europe, and, in Australia, you have a big presence also, interestingly.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it seems like it, but in the States, I don't know. I'm sure you have other houses, but it's not like, Dominicans, Benedictines, Franciscans. You don't have as many numbers, it seems, although at one point you were quite numerous.
Yes,
in the past we were. Mm-hmm. Currently our order is quite small relative to, as you mentioned, the Dominicans, right. So we're definitely not as well known as them, particularly in the more Western world. Like in the Eastern Europe, we're better well known. But yes, though interestingly, we do actually date from about the same time as the Dominicans.
Right.
We were founded around the same time.
So tell us, so let's go to the story behind the order's founding. Let's just start for those who don't know about this, who might be listening.
Okay, the very simple story is around about 1250, a man by the name of Blessed Eusebius who was at the time canon at the cathedral in Esztergom. He received a vision in which he saw many small flames in the hills come together and be united into one big flame. He interpreted this vision to mean that God wanted him to gather together all the hermits who were living around Esztergom, where I actually went a couple of months ago, about 6 months ago. I actually went there. That was quite fun. And he gathered these hermits together to found our order. Originally, the first monastery was called the Monastery of the Holy Cross. So that was kind of the start of our order. That was in Hungary, so Eastern Europe, as we mentioned before. It was from there that it started to spread. We got official approval from the Vatican in 1308, kind of the official date when the order was registered.
It's the date we received the rule of St. Augustine.
Yes.
We did exist beforehand for a good time.
Yeah. That's kind of like the original founding of the order. And then from that spread around, we spread quite quickly and grew quickly after that time, so we started having houses in Croatia, Hungary, and all that. So we reached, I think, a peak. It would have been about 8,000 or something, maybe. But unfortunately, in the 17th and 18th century,
before that, it was the fall of Hungary to Turks.
Yeah, well, that first, the Turks coming in.
And the schools of martyrs that our order produced.
Yes, that of course caused a lot of troubles to our order. We lost a lot of houses, particularly in Croatia and other places like that.
It also caused a change in our habits.
Yes, that's actually an interesting story. We'll get back to
We'll get back to that, because your habits, people look at you and assume you're Dominican, and then you have an opportunity to tell people all about your order.
Yes. So that we were also then suppressed by the Austro-Hungarian Emperor. He suppressed a lot of religious orders that weren't active, that weren't running schools or hospitals. So he suppressed us as well. So we ended up only surviving, we were reduced eventually down to just 2 houses in Poland. And it was from those 2 houses that the order regrew, which is why the order does have a rather Polish character.
I see, okay.
So we from Jasna Góra, where we have the Shrine of the Black Madonna, which is quite famous.
Yes.
And we also kept what is now our seminary in Krakow, at Skałka. So it's from those 2 houses that the then order regrew.
Now, because of the persecution, you were contemplative at one point. After that, was this a matter of surviving to become more active? I mean, because things have changed a little bit. Now you're a parish, you more active work.
Originally, yes, we were a more contemplative order. Now we kind of characterize ourselves as semi-contemplative, so we try and keep most of the prayer life of a contemplative order, but then also have active work. A lot of this comes probably from having a big shrine, right? So when one of our houses, you've got 2 houses, one of them is a major Marian shrine, you have a lot of pilgrims coming. You then need to work with the pilgrims. Right.
They come with spiritual food. You have to.
So that kind of changed the character there, right? And when the order regrew from these 2 houses, that kind of shaped the new identity of the order very strong. So yes, we're now semi-contemplative.
Okay. And so let's go to the habits.
Okay, we mentioned before that we get confused with Dominicans.
Yes.
My favorite funny little story is even Dominicans mistake me for a Dominican. I love it when that happens because I get to lead them, up the garden path to say, because they ask the question, what province do you come from? Now my answer is, because I'm from Australia, and our province is the province of Our Lady Queen of Hermits. That's my answer, Lady Queen of Hermits.
And they start scratching their heads.
Well, they don't know where that is.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So I tell them it's in Australia. They then might know one or two fathers in Australia from their order. So they ask, do you know Father so-and-so? And I say, well, he's not in our province. So they're getting really, really confused.
You like nothing better than seeing a Dominican confused? Is that
I can tell the difference between our habit and theirs with a slight glance.
Yeah.
So that they can't, it's kind of like, I feel entitled to get my little bit of fun out of their confusion.
Well, this is yes. The active life, and they're contemplating some abstract.
But one of the easy differences to spot is actually our belt. Mm-hmm. Now, in the past, this wouldn't have always been the case. We mentioned the martyrs before.
Yes.
In the past, we would have actually had a black leather belt, just like the Dominicans. Mm-hmm. We had a number of Croatian fathers, though, that were martyred by the Turks, who hanged them by their belts, right? So we changed our belts after that in memorial of this to a wider cloth belt, which is what we have now. That, of course, is a quite obvious visual difference. If
right,
you're looking for
and if someone just sees that, they might think you're Norbertines. Not quite. I mean, it is different.
We have a scapula in the Norbertines.
They don't, no, but they have a scapula. Well, anyway, you see, so at the Angelicum, you see 3 variations on the theme of a white habit.
Yeah.
You got the Dominicans, we have a few Norbertines, and we have you. Okay. So, all right. So, how did you both get interested in this order? Did you have contact with Pauline Fathers? And well, let's first start this. Did you feel vocation story? Did you first feel a call in general to the priesthood, to monastic life? Before you met the Fathers? Was it in concert with them? Were they in your parishes?
I think we both have kind of similar stories. Mine goes like this. I first realized I had a vocation when I was about 8 years old. I think there was a number of factors that led to that moment. One, it was a few months after I received my first Holy Communion and first confession, so I was just starting to receive some of the sacraments. I think it was also an influence of my then parish priest. He was a priest that, I had a lot of respect for many years after, until he died in my mid-teen years. We kept in contact with him even after he retired. We used to go and visit him. I think that started my realization of my vocation. I still remember the first moment of it, except it's just really hard to explain that certainty that came in that moment, and that certainty has never left. However, later in my teenage years, I was kind of looking at how to then actually realize this vocation, like where do I go? Unfortunately, the local seminary in Brisbane, where I'm from, was very liberal, not a place where I wanted to go. We mentioned my brother before when we were chatting, who's now with the Brisbane Oratory. When they did an evaluation of that seminary a few years ago, they decided it wasn't suitable for priestly formation.
Oh, dear. Okay.
Yes, that's,
Got it.
That situation. Right? So it's not just me saying that. Right? So I was looking for somewhere to join. So I just basically started saying to God, well, God, you've called me, sort this out.
Right.
And he did in a way. I was homeschooled, and we started to go to a homeschooling group that was started at Marion Valley, which is a Marian shrine in Australia run by the Pauline Fathers. At the time, the fathers were actually all Australian, and a brother also Australian. So I didn't actually at first realize the Polish character of the order because I was just meeting Australians.
Yeah.
So we started going there regularly, once a month, and I got to know the fathers well. And it was through that contact, that contact with the order, that I realized that God was calling me to that. So as I was approaching the end of my school years, when I was about 17, I went to the rector of the shrine and approached him, Father Columba, now Bishop Columba of Wilcannia Forbes about joining the order. He talked about it with me, and, he said 17's a bit young, so he suggested I go and study for a few years, which I eventually did. And then I joined at 21, and I was sent to Poland for my novitiate, which was quite a culture shock in many ways.
I imagine. That's typical, though, isn't it, for someone who's not from Poland to go to have a novitiate there at the shrine?
We've been doing it.
Okay.
We have a novitiate out in the country in a little village, so it's very rural. There's not a lot of contact, with anything, so you're kind of isolated and put through it that year. It's a very big cultural shock for me. I remember the hardest part was probably the first Christmas there. I tears, I must admit. It was quite tough for me here. I struggled a lot with the language.
Yeah, I imagine.
I had one brother who was Croatian. He learned Polish very fast and spoke English well, so he was the translator most of the time. But, that was an interesting experience.
But you made it.
I made it through, yes.
And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Definitely. And after that, the carrot at the end was that I'd get sent to Rome and study.
And here you are.
Yes, here I am.
Here you are. Okay, now Brother Casimir, let's hear how you came to know your vocation and how you came to this order.
Oh, well, that is quite a long story. Well, that's a bit. Much like Joseph, I always wanted to be a priest from a young age. And much like Joseph here, I was looking for guidance to find where God wanted me. Now, much like Joseph, I approached a priest in charge of formation, seminarians. Well, not at the age of 17 as Joseph here. Rather, I was 15 because I was going to graduate from high school at the age of 16. So I approached this priest, a good friend of mine. He was a diocesan priest. And I asked him, look, I would like to be a priest one day. I would like to be a priest for this diocese. What do you want me to do? Would you like me to go to university? Would you like me to get a job? I'm completely open to your direction. And he looked at me and said, I can start seminary after high school. It's no problem for me. So that's how...
He was afraid that if you waited.
I don't know.
You might just wander off. You better grab this one now because I don't know.
I don't know, but he was very good to me. And I look up to him in many ways as a father figure. For example, last Father's Day, I was in Australia. I had a compulsory time for my father, and then I went and took him out.
Oh,
yes, he paid it. Quite a nice week.
Sweetens the deal. Okay.
Anyway, so he accepted me to the seminary and twisted the bishop's arm into it, and they sent me to a country seminary in Australia, Theology College in Wonga. So I did...
Say that slowly for those who are not from Australia, because I had to make sure that was a real place. What's it called again?
Wonga. Now, that might be quite a funny name, but the Latin name of the diocese is Corvopolis, or, if I'm not mistaken, Corvopolitanensis, which means the city of the crows. So the church has respected the local native culture of Australian Aborigines and actually translated their name for that place into Latin.
That's fascinating.
And the name for that place, Wagga Wagga, is actually the plural of the word for crow.
Ah.
Because their word for the crow is the sound it makes, a wagga. So a wagga wagga means that there's many crows there. In fact, they had a crow on the coat of arms of both the diocese and the seminary. Holding a hay bale to show the country.
I wondered about the name. I said, there must be a meaning to it, and now we know.
Yes. So, yes. So I studied there for about 5 years, and I received a university education in addition to my seminary studies at the local university, where the bishop had me do a Bachelor of Arts in addition to the usual study of theology and philosophy at the seminary. I majored in Australian history and politics as a minor. During that time, I knew the order since I was a kid. In fact, I was supposed to be baptized by the founder of our province, the late Father Augustine Nazar, but that didn't happen. And I would always go to the shrine at Penrose Park, which was south of Sydney, north of Wagga Wagga, for big occasions, when Bishop came or when there was a pilgrimage, and assist there. And over the years, particularly in seminary when I studied Australian church history, the first bishops in Australia, well, first bishop I should say, B. Paulding, was a Benedictine. And the first Vicar General, Father William Ullathorne, he was a Benedictine as well. He was particularly interesting to me because as a young seminarian at the age of 17 in my first year, he was Vicar General of Australia, because Australia at that stage belonged under the Diocese of Mauritius. He was Vicar General at the tender age of 26.
Wow.
Yes. And particularly the title of his autobiography is The Devil is a Jackass. Not referring to a male donkey, but rather to the name that they gave the kookaburra.
Okay.
The early convicts, because of its laughing call.
Ah.
So I read his autobiography, and I read about the Benedictines in Australia, and the idea of founding Australia as a monastic country, where parishes would exist as kind of arms of a monastery, that local priests would live together in a central place as a monastery, and then they would go out to station and parish churches for their masses, and they'd come back together to live the communal life, to have solemn liturgy, and to chant the office. So that very much attracted me. And if these Benedictines still existed in Australia, I probably would have joined them. Unfortunately, that's simply not the case anymore. During this time, I noticed the similarities between these Australian Benedictines and our order, the Order of St. Paul the First Hermit. So one thing led to another, and after a lot of prayer and a pilgrimage for different monasteries in Europe, where I decided to become a monk of some kind, I eventually settled on joining our order.
So you also did your novitiate in Poland.
Yes, I did.
And that was not the same kind of experience that Brother Joseph had, because you're a Polish descent and you speak the language.
Yes.
And so what was that like for you when you were there?
It was very interesting because although we spoke the same language, we came from very different cultural backgrounds.
So what were some of the differences? How would that manifest?
Well, for example, in English, generally, we're taught to speak using the subjunctive case, mood, rather, to be more polite, to be less direct. None of that exists in Polish. So in English, if you ask somebody, if a superior asks an inferior in English, could you please do that? That's obviously in order.
Right.
It's couched
some
like
decoration around it. So, yeah.
Well, in Polish it would be you, do this.
Yes. That in general, I found that European culture in general is like that. Whichever country you go to. I mean, some have a little bit more of the courtesy. You know, you'll find that thrown in. But in general, there's more of a directness here, all around. But in Eastern Europe, certainly, that's true.
Yes. So there were many incidents of that.
Some misunderstandings along.
Yeah. The other thing was there was a certain group of people with me somehow believed their grasp of English was better than mine. Particularly when we were translating things, which was not very pleasant.
All for your spiritual training, I'm sure. Yes.
But I must admit, I enjoyed my 4 months' work of animals at the monastery there. They were great. The peacocks.
You did. How did you look after peacocks?
I don't know. I kept them in his cage. They did escape once.
Okay, I have an image of you in your habit chasing the peacock around a pen.
Oh, luckily when we were out working, we didn't have to wear our habits. They would have been destroyed.
Well, the peacock...
Don't ruin the image I have in my head.
The peacock left his cage, and I think I said, okay, Mr. Peacock, using the respective term in Polish.
He would have understood if you were more direct. You just said, get back.
No, I said, Mr. Peacock, no one has to fly today.
In Polish.
Yes, could you calm down? No one has to fly today. Climb me into your cage again.
And he did?
Yes, he did. He did, after some couching and some walking.
Very good.
Yes, at the time, the pony bolted from me. That was pretty
The pony. How did you get the pony back?
Well, I prayed like that. Well, you see, I was taking him for a walk and tried to run slightly with him. You know, get him going. he quite enjoyed this rope. So he ran much faster than I could. And I decided holding on to a rope behind a bolting pony in a forest was a bad idea. So I let go. Needless to say, after a few prayers, some soul searching, and wondering what I'll tell the novice pastor about the lost pony, I discovered that he's in a field grazing. So once again, I come up to him, get Mr. Pony, now I need to bolt.
In English.
No, in Polish.
In Polish.
I always have to speak these animals.
Polish animals. They're not going to understand English.
Pony. Yes, so eventually I said, I also had various amounts of pigs, 12 big pigs, 16 piglets. It helped kill the pigs too. We used to make Polish blood sausage. So.
I bet that was fun.
Well, I hold, yeah.
Certainly weren't. No. Okay.
We had chickens, and over 100 chickens.
So you liked being with the animals?
Oh, it was great.
It was great.
Yes.
My didn't have so many animals.
No.
I was there to build the cage, but the chickens didn't arrive until the last few weeks of my novitiate. So we just had the pig.
So I have you to blame for that.
Yes, I
How substandard chicken coop.
I didn't design it. I just did, the cleaning up and helping build the thing.
I used to lament as a prior about how much it needed an upgrade and repairs.
Yes. No, my favourite work during the novitiate was to do, before winter came, they had big furnaces that burnt wood. So we had to go out to the forest.
And chop wood?
To collect wood. Now, I didn't actually get to use the chainsaws. They had one of the brothers and a hired man to operate the chainsaws, but we had to collect the logs and put them in the trailer for the tractor to take them back. And these were big logs. You're talking about like 20, 30 centimeter diameter and about a meter long, right? So collecting them up and loading them on the tractor all day. Oh, I got quite strong by the end of that.
I think we should mention one of your many nicknames at this stage. Your brother Joseph, you're known colloquially as Joe. But you are also known as Strongman Joe.
Oh, that wasn't... No.
Who gave you this nickname?
That was more him afterwards because I did that and I went every day, right? Yeah. I was the only novice that actually got sent to that every day because, like a lot of the other jobs, like working in the sacristy
taking care of peacocks.
There's no peacocks here. But like looking after the door, I couldn't do those jobs, whereas sending them out to just put logs in a tractor, that was simple to explain to me. So they liked sending me simple jobs like that. Yes. I got a reputation by the end of it of being able to pick up the strongman.
So you could have been in one of those strongman competitions,
Oh, I don't think I got that.
Oh, yeah, where you just pick up a 500-pound, rock and just, whoever crosses the line first wins. It's very direct and straightforward. Right? Okay. Now, all right, so let me ask you both, what spiritual lessons did you take from your novitiate after these varied experiences? How did they help you mature in your vocation and discerning?
Well, it was a very intensely religious time, quite a full-on schedule. I remember one time we had a Polish teacher. She was complaining about how busy her day was, and then we described our day, and she goes, "Okay, my day was not that busy." We'd wake up. My year. We'd be in the chapel by 6 o'clock. We'd do morning prayer from the breviary and then meditation. Then we'd go down to the church for the 7 o'clock Mass, go to the Mass. After that, we'd come back to the chapel for Thanksgiving, and then we'd go to breakfast at 8. After breakfast, we'd get sent out for whatever our daily work was. So that would be working in the fields, going out in the forest, anything could be. Then we'd come back to the monastery and then the chapel at 11:30. We'd start spiritual reading till 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock was more prayer from the breviary. Lunch, after lunch recreation, then back to work. Then in the evening, once we came back from work, around about 6 o'clock, we'd go to the rosary, evening prayer. After evening prayer was dinner again. After dinner, we'd have normally an hour of adoration.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it got replaced by some other devotions, maybe Stations of the Cross in Lent or something like that. We would normally have our hour of adoration then, and ending with night prayer from the breviary. So there was a lot of prayer during the day, along with work. It's also because there was no distractions. During the novitiate, you've got no TV. You're allowed to call home once a month, write one letter a month.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like this. No internet, of course, as well. Pretty much every electronic device is taken from you, except your alarm clock and your watch, so you're always on time. They're compulsory. Everything else is bad. So when you're in that environment where you're praying a lot, you've got no distractions, you can really enter into the spiritual life. You come into adoration and your mind is full of everything from the day because there's manual labor and prayer. So it's very easy to enter into, an hour of adoration and gain something from that and enjoy it. It ceases to be like a hard battle to...
Well, you have fewer things to turn away from or stop thinking about or what have you, because the life is fairly simple.
Yeah, so it taught me to enjoy prayer. It taught me to appreciate the spiritual life. A lot of spiritual reading. I was reading a lot of stuff from the mystics or various saints. So learning from their life, how they arrived at God. I suppose it was the first time that I really intensely, had any religious experience. I mean, as a teenager, I'd go to Mass every Sunday, sometimes during the week with my family. We'd pray the rosary as a family and do that, but actually to really enter seriously into it,
it
was a whole different dimension, and it really does change, how you view your road to God.
How about you, Brother Casimir?
Where to start? Well, because I was already a seminarian for 5 years in the diocese before I entered the order. It was very strange to experience it all coming from an experienced background. Say, when I came to the novitiate, I already knew how to pray the breviary. I've been praying for several years. I already knew how to meditate. I was used to these rigors. It was strange to see fresh experiences from others, how it went.
Why?
Well, for example, many of them, as one does when one begins meditating regularly and praying on a more deeper level, you receive far more greater consolation in the first bout. Most of them couldn't believe I could sleep through meditation. For me, it was just normal. It was just... I've been meditating for 5 years.
You're a veteran.
I wouldn't call myself a veteran. I'd say I have some idea of what I'm doing. It was a very strange experience. The main thing I learned, though, from novitiate was that God really does listen to our prayers.
What experience made you so confident of that, for example? Or where it was somehow rooted in you?
Well, not to reveal what it was particularly, but I prayed for a certain intention almost every day in novitiate. I made novenas to various saints during that time for a particular intention. And it got to the moment where I thought all hope was lost in this, where I just accepted it's not going to happen. I remember praying to God, look, I put my trust in you, stuff like that. Obviously, it's not going to happen, so this must be your will. Fine. Well, then I'll accept it. But then, probably a month later, it happened. And I thought, wow, geez.
Didn't see that coming.
So prayer actually does work.
Well, the perseverance. I mean, I think that virtue is not talked about much today, but in praying for something, it has to be done perseveringly. That's one of the qualities of it supposed to be there. So we forget about that, but that you see how that works.
No, and much like Brother Joseph mentioned here, that in the novitiate you're freed from the distractions. you can always find more distraction. You can always re-watch Star Wars mentally. But did you do that?
Oh, you don't want to know. I loved fantasy, so, I started inventing my own.
Oh, yes, it's great.
Oh, this is where your time travel discussion came about. We'll leave that for another time.
No, but yes, so you have more freedom to pray with perseverance. For example, just even a basic thing, in the novitiate, we had our spot in the choir. We had a place to lay our books. We had a place you could put your meditation journal. It was all there. No one was going to move it or touch it.
Yeah.
So you could go there every day. I had a calendar. I had the liturgical day calendar. I could mark things off. I could mark things off from my novenas. I could write little notes or what happened during that day, or draw pictures. At Rome, because our private chapel is actually the public chapel of our parish, it's quite hazardous to leave any books or personal belongings in our spots.
I've had at least one breviary stolen.
Okay, strange kind of piety.
So,
you'd be surprised what it's stolen.
So once you start losing that kind of separation, that kind of space and freedom,
well, especially for your order. I mean, you are monks. I mean, this is a monastic order. So,
which means our charism is supposed to be praying the breviary.
Yes. Yeah, and have a degree of separation. I mean, when you have Benedictine monasteries, even if they don't have a cloister per se, well, a grill I'm thinking of for sisters, for example, but you'll find that signs here and there say monastic enclosure, meaning, this is for the religious who live at this monastery, and that's it.
Yeah. We certainly do have that at the parish.
Sure, but
there is a place, enclosure, don't enter.
Right, but it's probably not as marked as it had been in the past in the history of your order.
The thing is, the chapel is not inside that enclosure, which is
that
the frustration that Casimir is.
And is it that way in other parts of the world, or is it just because Rome and the way things are here? Because
it's the historical situation of the parish. So the parish we are at, if I remember right, it was opened under Urban VIII, the same pope that dealt with Galileo, if that puts a date in your mind. So it's been there for a long time. At one time it was actually the cathedral for a diocese outside Rome. Now it's inside Rome. But during the flood in the 1970s, it was destroyed, right, and had to be rebuilt, right? So they rebuilt the historic church a bit, right, and then built a bigger church. But because that had always been open to the public, right, the public expected that to still be open to them, even though there was a new big church, next to it. Now, I would like it if you just locked the door and that became ours. But, it creates...
different kind of detachment.
Yes. Well, it is quite possible to lock the door,
As Joseph can attest to.
So
it gets done once or twice a year when we want to close it off for over the Easter season or something like that. So, things happen. It can be done. But if you did it permanently, the parishioners would probably go, crazy over it.
So the experience you had in the novitiate rooted you in the prayer life that is part of the warp and woof of monastic life.
Yeah.
It's rooted in that. There's a sense of stability to that, and the regularity of it, which aids the prayer life. Then you come to Rome. So now you told us what you got out of the novitiate experience and growing in, your prayer life and a knowledge of the order and in your vocations as Pauline. So what happened when you came to Rome? How have you found Rome?
On the religious side or the...
both. Whatever you would say.
Comparing it with the religious experience of the novitiate, the novitiate is very structured.
Right.
Whereas here, a lot of that structure is taken away and it then depends more on yourself, which is why you're actually fortunate to have had that experience and time, because you've got a foundation in it.
And it should be somewhat of a habit, a holy habit.
Yes. Well, we've got a very nice white habit. But So then it just becomes the battle to try and continue that.
Mm-hmm.
It is a lot more of a challenge. You do have your university schedule to work with.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the parish life to work with. And you've got to try and balance them and fit your prayer life into that.
Yeah.
It's not always easy, but from now on out, it's never going to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
So far, I'd say I mostly succeed with it. I do manage to say the whole breviary, do my meditation, do my rosary. Some days get my spiritual reading in, but with studies and having so many other readings to do, that sometimes, unfortunately, falls out.
Mm-hmm.
But
and it depends on the class. Sometimes what you're actually doing for the class can actually double for that, but it depends on the class, and what you're not.
Well, that's always the excuse, of course, I tell myself. I spent 2 hours reading for class. That was spiritual. I mean, it's theology, so I don't need to. Yes, it's an excuse.
It can be, right? Yes. How about you, Brother Casimir? What spiritual lessons have you learned being in Rome? How many years have you been here now?
This is my 5th year.
Your 5th year, and
this is my 2nd year.
Your 2nd year. Wow.
What have I learned?
Mm-hmm.
I've certainly learned to appreciate the Italian carefreeness and flexibility of things.
Describe.
It's difficult to describe, but this approach to life, to things, of not being bogged down in things like punctuality,
efficiency. Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. So it's something to appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, I've always wanted to study in Rome. Someone once famously described Rome as the engine room of the church.
Mm.
It's not a very pretty room on the ship. It is quite strange to be in a place where, after so many years in Australia, in the church, in ecclesial life, of being in a seminary, of hearing Rome and the Pope referred to, now all these realities are essentially a short train trip down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Which we rarely ever make.
Well, I know. People have asked me, so you've been to papal masses and this, and I thought, I remember, Mother Teresa's canonization. I wasn't actually here. I came a couple of weeks later, but they were, astounded that I wasn't going to be here for it. My first thought, I hate to say it, I was like, oh my God, the crowds, because it really is. I mean, you don't realize it when you're not living here, but there's a lot of crowds, and you have to make an effort to go. It's all day, and there you go.
You do realize when you have guests, though.
Yes.
Particularly you take them to St. Peter's.
And then they get it.
They're blown away. They're in awe.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a normal church.
Right.
Yes.
It's true. You walk by it all the time, or I ride the bus to school, and there's a colonnade.
It's like World Youth Day. When we went to World Youth Day,
yes, talk about World Youth Day.
In Krakow now, all of them were asking, a lot of people, this one does at World Youth Day, we are going to see the Pope, isn't that amazing? Our response was, well, we have the Pope as our bishop. He's just down the road. He comes to us in the parish occasionally. So,
and they think, so you've met Pope Francis?
Yes.
He came to your parish?
Well, not to our parish directly. Near our parish is the cemetery, which is a very big one in Rome, the Flaminio Cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
We jokingly sometimes say that because we have that, we have 4 million parishioners. But, yes. Well, it being a major thing, for All Souls Day, he did come and say the Mass there.
Mm-hmm.
So we were fortunate enough to serve that Mass for him.
Oh.
So, yes. We did get to meet him, shake his hand beforehand, all that kind of stuff.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes.
Yes. Mm. So, talk about World Youth Day. What was that like? Was that the first time you had been?
For me, yes.
And you?
This was my 3rd World Youth Day.
Your 3rd World Youth Day. A veteran.
I can't actually wait until I'm actually put in charge of a group. Because I've experienced this so many times of seeing a group leader who just doesn't get World Youth Day. Really?
What doesn't he get, and what would you change?
Well, one of the key aspects of World Youth Day is that you take people from a different culture and you put them in another culture. So one of the crucial elements of World Youth Day that many people don't highlight is the week before the actual World Youth Day, called Days in the Diocese. It's where you take your parish, the youth of your parish, put them in a parish completely different to theirs in another part of the world, and let them experience life in there. To see, hey, this is different, this is the same.
Which is a good idea.
And from there, that's where they meet their friends. That's where they establish these connections. And then they're not so shocked when they go to the main city of World Youth Day to encounter the millions of pilgrims that come.
And that doesn't get done.
Oh, to a certain extent, I've encountered people not doing it.
No.
Or, for example, one of the great joys of World Youth Day, which you don't find on a program or experience, is the very act of walking around with your group with a flag, encountering other people with flags, waving at them, yelling at them in your language. That kind of crowd and vibe. I once had a group at World Youth Day who decided, much contrary to my will, to stay at our residence and just stay there today, to sit in the garden at the back, while essentially the whole world, the whole young church congregated in that city. And we just sat in the garden with the very same parishioners and people we came with from a certain country.
Well, it's likely that when you go back to Australia, when you're ordained and all of that, you will likely have an opportunity to do that, put it into practice.
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. And what was your experience like, Brother Joseph?
Well, this was my first World Youth Day. I didn't know what to expect so much. And unlike Casimir, that we were doing something that wasn't, fully entering into World Youth Day, didn't really bother me. In some ways, I would have just liked to have been in my cell and locked the door. That's more me, the monk. I'm not ashamed of it. I just did what I was told and just drifted along, admittedly, for that. So, I didn't really care.
What were some of your favorites? The thing that left the deepest impression on you on World Youth Day?
Well, actually, unfortunately, for me, it's not my kind of spirituality.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. There's a little too much of the extroverted.
Yes, I'm a bit of an introvert.
Yes,
this was a very extroverted experience.
Yes, yeah.
I didn't quite fit in a lot of the time, unfortunately. So, that, plus we were with an Italian group, and I'm Australian. My Italian is so-so. I can communicate and understand when I want to, but, to actually, interact properly with our group, when you've got that kind of different language, different culture, it's complicated at some level. So, I wasn't able to really have fun in a certain sense, unfortunately. If I was with an Australian group, it would have probably been very different.
What happened with our renegade breakaway Australian group that we created?
Oh, that was fun. We hooked up with some of Casimir's friends and we started calling ourselves a separate group for a time. But
essentially, I got a few of my mates together, Australian mates. We had a few Polish girls join us as well for some strange reason. And we hoisted the Australian flag. Yes. We decided our group was called the Aussie Saints. My cousin was elected the leader. I was elected chaplain of this group. Joseph was my assistant chaplain.
And flag bearer.
Yes.
See, one thing I did do when I was last back in Australia is buy a really big Australian flag. So, yes.
Came in handy.
Yes. So when, it was time to advertise, I'm Australian, yes, I could pull out the big flag and wave it around.
But you also pulled out another flag on occasion.
Yes, sometimes I pulled out the Italian flag.
Yes. Okay.
And if you hit the green part of the Italian flag, you ended up with the Polish flag.
And everybody was happy.
Or even if you wanted to stir people up, you could fold the Australian flag just so you had the Union Jack. And then get near a British group and show the rest of it.
Yes. Can you still remember the look on their faces when we unfurled
It was like,
I've never seen people so shocked to see the Southern Cross.
No, like my jokes.
Okay. And we've got a few minutes left. I wanted to know what you thought about the future of your order looks like. Now, there have been changes in history. I mean, do you see things changing in any way in terms of apostolates? I mean, do you see more young people joining? I mean, are anything afoot? I mean, what hopes would you have to see in the future?
Well, at the minute, our order has a very Polish characteristic. Mm-hmm. I'm not Polish at all. I'm on mum's side. I'm English, mm-hmm. and my dad's Irish. So it was very interesting. The year after my novitiate, mm-hmm. it was the first year where the novitiate there was more than half of the novices were foreigners. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that the order does start to become more international. Mm-hmm. We're getting vocations in Australia regularly. Some of the other provinces, like the Croatian province, they're mm-hmm. getting regular vocations.
Mm-hmm. Homegrown.
Yes, homegrown mm-hmm. vocations. So I would like to definitely get a more international character to it. We have a mission in Cameroon as well. We're getting plenty of vocations there. I would certainly like that more international character mm-hmm. to develop more, mm-hmm. Not to be so associated with one country. Mm-hmm. In Australia, that's happening. We're getting vocations regularly. We've got 2 candidates coming this year, hopefully. Mm-hmm. They're both yet to confirm, but we're hoping both enter. So that will be 2 more vocations. So we're growing.
Mm-hmm. Well, being a monastic order doesn't necessarily, sometimes people think bigger means better. That's not necessarily true. I mean, it's a matter of being faithful to the charism, mm-hmm. That the founder and just doing what the order is supposed to be doing. So I again, some orders just have this push for the more numbers you have, the better. I don't think that you necessarily have to. I mean, it's great to have people,
well, in Australia, we really, really do want to grow a lot. Right. I mean, we get offers to take more places than we have fathers to actually mm-hmm. hold down. So we've knocked back a couple of places now mm-hmm. because the fathers say, yeah, we'd like it in one way, but another way we don't actually have the ability to serve that. Right. So,
but there's a need, and so
particularly in Australia, I mean, vocations aren't mm-hmm. that abundant, and in any Western country they have that problem. Mm-hmm. So definitely growing, it would allow us to have more houses and hopefully also mm-hmm. more in each house, which mm-hmm. as a monastic order, you want enough in each house to have a community, right? Having one living by himself, you can't really have a monastic life. You need, like, even 2 or 3 is a struggle. You want, 6
the Constitution say our house minimum should be 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which would mean we do need a lot more than we have. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. getting too big isn't a problem that I see happening in the future.
That is also a great issue with monastic life in general. Mm-hmm. There is a certain critical mass you have to achieve. As fun as it is to have an abbot read a reading, mm-hmm. A professed monk eat the meal, and a novice serve him, that simply doesn't give the monastic life its dignity.
Do you have a maximum, like the Carmelites do, for example, not supposed to go for 13 if they do another foundation to be started? I mean, I know you're not strictly contemplative, but there's nothing like that.
Our biggest houses are the Black Madonna Shrine in Poland. Mm-hmm. There's about 120 or so there, mm-hmm. I think. We have the American Czechoslovakia in the United States. I think they have around about 30 mm-hmm. or more there. It's more than that?
17.
What? 17.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. My numbers are wrong, sorry. Mm-hmm. But, we have houses with a fair few people in it. The biggest in Australia right now is about 6. Mm-hmm. The mother house in Australia, that has 6. Mm-hmm. So we don't really have a fixed number, but
you need a certain amount.
You need a certain amount to have,
of course,
and
to have
all of that.
To have a monastic community. You do
right. Mm. And do you see any Are there any initiatives that those who are, I was going to say, your superiors or in the positions of authority that are looking, for example, you'll have some groups that have spent a lot of money getting great websites up, or, they go to vocations fairs, that sort of thing.
The website's supposed to be my job next year.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought it was your job this year.
Well, every time I go back for holidays in Australia, it's been my job. But yes, when I move back to Australia permanently, when I finish my studies, websites will definitely be
right. You're going to get
my job, because before I joined the order, I did some studies. Part of that was studying IT. So I did a few computer subjects, and I was also mucking around doing that even in my teenage years. So I got quite good at it. So having somebody who can do it and they don't have to pay him directly to do that, with it, in-house as well is an advantage. So I'll be looking after that. So hopefully, a bit more publicity there.
The rest of it too, I think it's a matter of the holiness of
most of the vocations, though, have come out of people who have had regular contact to our monastery or parish. So I came from contact with Marion Valley, which is our monastery up near Brisbane. Casimir had contact at Penrose Park. A couple of the other vocations were from our parishes in Sydney.
And being monastic, especially.
One of our new candidates is also entering through Marion Valley. He lives in the city a bit south of mine, the Gold Coast.
And making sure having that prayer life strong and deep would be key, because you are monastic, even though you do have this apostolic dimension to your life. But that's unique to all of you.
The other thing that really hit me when I was getting in contact with the Pauline Fathers, they were one of the few male religious orders in Australia that I had met at the time that still had the habit. That said to me, these guys are serious about what they're doing. So
do you find that people will go up to you and just ask for prayers and?
All the time.
Yeah. So, there are people who say, well, it's a barrier, to this communication that would be meaningful with people who might want prayers, whereas I think many people would say it's a magnet.
Well,
more than anything.
In my...
I think the habits are about pretty much,
I think the habit is important in the same way a policeman should be wearing a uniform. If a policeman is not wearing his uniform, most people are going to ignore him. Right? If he tried to tell people what to do and he's not in a uniform, they're not going to do what he says. Right? Put the uniform on, it's like you see his office's function and you'll it changes things. When you see a religious or a priest wearing a collar, you know that this is a person associated with the church, and you can approach them and ask them to pray for something. You will also get negative reactions from some people.
But you're walking around as an eschatological sign. It's a wonderful thing.
But, it's just part of the witness.
Yes.
I think whether that's well received or not is quite important.
But perhaps to end here with, as you mentioned, initiatives.
Yeah.
We mentioned we have shrines, and God has entrusted this charism to us of having shrines. The most important thing about a shrine is to have pilgrims to come to it. So in many ways, our apostolate is geared towards the shrines and our parishes to bring people to our shrines. For example, our provincial in Sydney, Australia, his parish is the diocesan shrine to St. Benedict, and that is our current project, to bring people to that church, to our shrine, to have the intercession of the saints, particularly of the Blessed Virgin Mary, in their lives, in a shrine.
Now, the shrine, for those listening who might be in the United States or listen to this later, where is the shrine in Pennsylvania?
Doylestown, Pennsylvania.
Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and they have a website.
They do.
And it is www.paulinefathers, something like that. Well, I'll find it and I'll have it. I'll put it up on the
I'm sure
on the blog page. I will do that because I looked it up and I saw that. So Yes, that would be good for them to visit. Beautiful chapel. It's a replica of the one in Yasnagora that you had that has the Black Madonna there. It's absolutely beautiful. So
the lower chapel.
The lower chapel, right. Distinctively European with all the dark. It's beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you both very, very much. I think we're pretty much out of time. Yeah. But I appreciate you being here and sharing your stories and telling us all about your order that for some people in the States is a bit unknown. So like I said, I'm going to get the website up there and people can go visit. We have the coat of arms there. I meant to ask you about that. Maybe we'll do it another day. But anyway, so Bob, I think we're out of time.
Well, this is a wonderful program today. I really sense a lot of joy, joy in your order. And does that you find that wherever you go? I mean, with your other brothers and also.
Yes, I mean, I remember when I first joined and did my candidacy at Penrose Park, listening to the fathers around the table. It was a laugh a minute. Yeah, some of these guys were real characters, and yes, there was a lot of fun.
Mm. That's it. That's what it's all about. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, and we'll be back, Natalia, again next week, same time, same station.
You bet.
And in the meantime, may God bless each and every one of you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. All right, God bless you, Bob. We'll see you next week.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.